Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah, Pearls of Wisdom and Food with keto and some carnivore thrown in too. And today is a very, very special Monday, unlike most others. Today, I'm having a conversation with the cowboy. Hi, cowboy.
Hi, Girlie. It's a pleasure to be with you as always.
Now, the difference between this and an interview before you people start typing away, give him some space. You don't have to do all the talking, girly. This is a conversation. We've already established that we're friends. So anything that comes out of this is a free flowing dialogue. It's not me posing questions to him. So I just wanted to get that out there before people start taking that poison keyboard.
Okay, and that's fair, Girlie. And one of the things that I do enjoy about these little monthly installments that you and I do is that they are a conversation. I think the odd ones occur on my channel, and the even ones are hosted on your channel. And this one is on your channel, and we're just talking. We're not. It's not like the person whose channel it is on is interviewing the other person. And I want to stress that part of the value of this exercise is to show people how easy it is to form a friendship within this community simply by reaching out to someone whom you think might make a good friend, as I did when I reached out to you via comments over a year ago, because I found your videos quite helpful. And I thought, let's be friends. And now we exchange emails routinely, and this is how the community can grow. I mean, it's just this easy. You find someone who shares your interest, who shares some of your attitudes, who maybe is different in a few ways that will give you something to talk about, and you make a friendship happen. It's really that easy.
It is that easy. And interestingly, your most recent video, I think it's your most recent, anyway, I watched it this morning, was the parable with the butterfly. And you talked about teammate. And I found that very, very interesting. And although I already commented on a video that I made for a future published date, but it's true. It's like if you're not having grains, you're not having sugar, you're not having seed oils, you're a teammate of mine.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't want to get hung up on sort of micro distinctions, right? It's easy to get within the carnivore community. You'd think, wow, these people only eat animal products. That must make them very unified. And you find people very fiercely opposed to eating dairy, and some people saying, no, dairy's fine. It's an animal product. You'll find some people very fiercely opposed to eating cooked meat. And other people saying, no, cooked meat's fine. And you get into this, these small differences that turn people into factions. And you're like, what? Wait, we all believe that we should be eating high quality, nutrient dense foods derived from animals, right? And so sure, we can have our little arguments, but let's remember, and I'm not saying those arguments, I'm sorry. I don't mean, when I say little, I don't mean to minimize that. Sometimes there are quite significant consequences from these choices, especially for particular people dealing with particular problems. So in no way am I meaning to minimize this stuff. But at the same time, if you get so mad, like, oh, that guy makes me so mad because he doesn't understand the importance of eating this organ with this particular meal at this particular time of day, because the sun, and I know everything is exactly aligned for when that nutrition is going to hit. And you could be right about every little one of those details. But if someone else doesn't accept all of it, it doesn't mean that they're your enemy. It just means that they haven't been persuaded of the value of what you're doing. And if they're on board with most of what you're doing, why not continue to think of them as a friend rather than an enemy? Just seems kind of easy.
Exactly. And, I've even heard it with as little an item, don't mean to minimize little, salt. It's like, right. Oh, you're having salt? How can you even think of being a friend of mine? I mean, it's like the political world today. It just seems like if you suddenly have your own opinion about something and something's working for you, how could you?
Right.
And in my keto world, it would be, how many meals a day are you having? It's like, oh, you're not OMAD? I don't really think we have much in common.
Exactly. Because I was OMAD when we started our friendship. I was OMAD and you weren't. And now you've come around to that. But I don't think that's because of me. I think that's because of your nutritional program sort of leading you down a particular path. And it's great that we have that in common now, and that we, especially because we didn't used to, but there are other things we don't have in common. And it's not like, and we email each other, for people who don't know, multiple times each week. Sarah and I are constantly communicating with each other. And it's not like the point of my emails is to get you to eat more like the way I eat, or the point of your emails is to get me to eat more the way you eat. Oh, I eat at 6:30. You eat more in the afternoon. Let's argue about that. No, it just, we found what works for us in our lives. And it's real easy to make that stuff go.
Yeah, it does. It just works. And in no way have you ever pressured me in anything that I've come into, like the OMAD, you know, was you're a big influence in my life, but you never give me pressure. And if you did give pressure, probably Marnia would be the first person to notice that and make, you know, something of that. I've never you with her about her, or anytime we've had conversations or emails, or anybody that you've interviewed, you trying to sway them to your way of thinking, eating, and doing their lives. You know, you were the most step-back person, you know, that I could be friends with in this world. And, you know, you were keto, exactly. When I met you, you were OMAD when I met you. And, you know, then you did the carnivore experiment that you called it. And
Right.
now it's your way of eating.
Yeah. And I thank you for all of that. And I hope that I can live up to that high praise. I do have, you know, flaws. There are times when I wish other people would listen to what I have to say and change their behavior, but I do try to remember it's important for all of us to step back and keep an open mind, not just for other points of view, but for other paces. That I've wound up where I've wound up through a series of choices and a series of influences, important influences on me, including people like Amber O'Hearn, people like Georgia Ede, whom we now have in common as an influence. And I evolve over time quite naturally. But if someone had tried when I started keto, if someone had tried to compress everything that's happened over the past almost 2 years now and say, well, you'll really be a lot happier if you just start here, I would have freaked out. You know, 1 meal a day, I only eat animal products. What are you talking about? This sounds like madness. And so it's just so foreign. Time doesn't just heal all wounds. It kind of obliterates all philosophical differences, really. Over time, you just kind of see, oh, I kind of get where they're coming from now. I could maybe play around with that idea. It may seem like we're on opposite ends of the spectrum, but if we just think about it long enough, we say, oh, we actually have something in common there. I think we can do that no matter what the nutritional program we're following.
Yeah, I think so too. And, you know, we all evolve. I mean, look at me. I was doing Weight Watchers with, you know, I call it the standard American diet mini version. And my question again is, why isn't Oprah a size 6 or 8? My question.
It's a mystery.
I know. And so then I went to low carb, high fat, and then I went to, you know, keto under 20 total. And I'm at keto, you know, under 7 some days total. And, you know, as I said in the other video that I did this morning, I said, you know, my head is definitely listening to a lot of carnivore. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it where I'm at right now. And you're carnivore. And so although I lean towards it and I listen to it, and the homework assignment that I gave you is about a carnivore person, what I lean towards is finding something that works for me. And I'm in the lettuces reduction phase of what I'm doing. And I went from like 150 to 200 grams of lettuce in my big A salad every day. And now I'm down to 60. And
wow.
And I told TD Teedee. She's a
Right.
friend of both. Yeah. And I told her, who knows? Next week I could be at 50 grams of the lettuce, And usually I am a rip the Band-Aid off type of person, quitting drinking, quitting smoking, quitting sugars, quitting grains, rip it right off. Today I'm doing those things, tomorrow I'm not. But it just seems that in this keto version that I do, looking at carnivore, it's a slower process. It's like a remove a little bit at a time. And today, my position is Monday, September 17th. My position is to have a little of both and be very happy with a day that I have veggies. That is like Sunday when we do the big green egg, and Saturday is the keto pizza, and then other days it's a very small portion of lettuce. And I'm going to see how that works. I am a work in progress. And so it's just different that it's a peeling back a little bit at a time with this journey more so than any other thing in my life.
Right. Well, what's interesting to me about that is I think there are a lot of people who would feel comforted that maybe you're taking it easy on your microbiome by continuing to give yourself a lot of the plant matter that you're adjusted to, which is going to feed a lot of the bacteria that are established and colonizing your microbiome. And I know that makes a lot of people, especially Bill Davis, would talk about something like that. And I understand he's been a big influence on you. And I think a lot of his ideas are quite great. I'm not as on board with his probiotic microbiome fixation as most people are, but I know most people aren't ready to understand that what we've been told about fiber is mostly false. And I'll put this bug in the ear of your viewers, some of whom I know are probably just frightened by the idea of carnivore, because how could you do it without fiber? We know fiber is good for you. And the reason, what I'll say is we don't know that at all. We know fiber is indigestible. The reason we think fiber is good for us is because when processed food manufacturers include fiber in their product, that is space in the product that cannot be occupied by sugars or seed oils or grains. So to the extent that fiber in your processed food displaces toxins like sugar, seed oils, and grains, sure, to that extent, fiber is helpful. But what processed food has done, and I want to recommend that people check out Gabor Erdosi, and you can find him on Ivor Cummins' channel, the Fat Emperor channel, Gabor Erdosi. He does a great talk about how this has led processed food manufacturers to just add more fiber back into their food. They make this crap food and then they put fiber into it. And the fact is, over the decades, we got all this data that the fiber that was left in food wasn't hurting you as much as the other stuff. And they're using that to warrant the argument that by adding fiber in, they're making the food healthier, but they're still leaving all the other goop in. They're just, and the idea is that the fiber is going to dilute it and you need it and it will help your microbiome. And that's what everyone believes. I believed that when I started, but when you cut the fiber out of your diet, when you eat nothing but animal products and you don't feed your microbiome that probiotic fiber that everyone says is so important, nothing happens. And it's fine. Your microbiome is fine. And Sean Baker likes to share tweets from people in his Meat Heals group who get their microbiomes tested. And you see people eating nothing but animal products with more diversity in their microbiome than the people who are drinking the kombucha and having the 100 different kinds of green leafies because they want to help grow this colony and that colony and the other colony of bacteria. That stuff is not. It sounds great to us, but it doesn't work out in real life the way you think it will based on your information. Because if you're like me, you're not a scientist. You've just heard this you've just heard.
Exactly.
Gotta have fiber.
They said, look, just like having, a vitamin D whole milk, or now it's like 1%, but you're really hurting my feelings because you're really trashing my candy bar with wigs. I couldn't go a step without my chicory infused Quest bars. It's such a staple in my life, Mike. And now you're doing this to me, and I don't know how to go about life anymore. I thought we were friends.
And
I want my chicory.
It was in your glove compartment, all convenient and ready for you. And then I made
And I love it that the sun warms it up a little bit in the hot car. Yeah. All right. So we both had homework assignments.
You did.
And you pointed out, I missed that whole part. You pointed out that we both chose videos with the same interviewer.
We did. I'll let you start because we both love him, but I'll let you start.
Well, Gary, is it Kerwin or Kerwin?
Kerwin.
Okay.
Kirwan, and I miswrote in an email. I was off.
Oh, okay. I have the biggest crush on him. I am so fascinated by him in the sense of like watching somebody. I just love his, well, first of all, his accent, his choice of words. I'm just, I land on every word that he says and just, I love it. And this man is the best interviewer that there is. And so we both chose him. And my assignment to you, Cowboy, was to watch the interview with him and Michaela Peterson. And Michaela Peterson is a 26-year-old woman from Canada whose dad is Jordan Peterson. And I don't want to go into him too much, but I guess he's got some acclaim throughout the world.
That's fair.
And he, so I'll go into what he does. Now you go into who you were assigned or who you assigned to me.
Well, I will. I'll talk about mine in a minute, but I want to piggyback onto some of what you said there. First, I want to clarify. We're talking about Biohackers Lab is the name of the series on YouTube.
Sorry. Yep.
That's fine. It's and the host is Gary Kerwin, and both Girlie and I believe he is probably the best thing going in nutritional interviews. And there are a lot of good nutritional interviewers. I think the two keto dudes do a great job every week with the interview segment of their show. I think Mark Hyman, whom I distrust on a lot of fronts, and whose guests.
You mean his interview with Dr. Oz? Why?
I did see that. Oh my goodness. And so I fundamentally distrust a lot of what Hyman has to say and a lot of his guests, but he puts together a pretty good podcast. And then you see lots of other people doing interviews, and a lot of them are quite good. I mean, it's kind of stunning when you look around the nutritional community, how easy it is to find an interview where the host is competent and the guest is knowledgeable. It's great. I think it's great that we have all this information. But even with that baseline of really good stuff to pick from, Gary Kerwin is the best at being quiet and letting his guest get through all the stuff the guest wants to talk about, and then asking exactly the question that I, as a listener, want him to ask. He doesn't just ask the question that he wants to ask. He anticipates what you, the listener, are wondering. Or right now, what do I just heard Michaela Peterson start talking, and this is one of the amazing things about the assignment you gave me. He asked her to give us some background on her, and I didn't time it, but I think it was probably more than 15 minutes before he spoke again. It was just a long monologue of her giving all this background information, and it was coherent and organized. She had it all set up. She knew what she wanted to get through. I think she had prepared it. And so there was no reason for him to interrupt and ask for clarifications because it was just perfectly easy to follow. But then when she finished talking, he was right there with the question that I think most viewers would have been wondering about. And the rest of of that conversation and every conversation he has goes much that way. So I think what we agreed before we delved into this is we just wanted to give props to Biohackers Lab and Gary Kerwin. Great job. And I think we both can't recommend this guy and his podcast highly enough to viewers who might be unfamiliar with it. And now I'll just turn it back over to you. Just before I get into, I want to talk about my stuff, but since we're on Michaela Peterson, Can you talk about what she meant to you? Let's just stick with that topic for the time being.
Okay. I would file Michaela Peterson and her interview with Gary under most bang for the buck. And the reason why is because it's not only about her journey, it's about her journey being pregnant and being a carnivore. It's about convincing her father to become a carnivore. It's about her convincing her mother to become a carnivore. I mean, not that they weren't, leaning that way, and her husband. And so you've got all of these different people entering into her history, her life, whatever it is that she's surrounded with. And wouldn't we all wish for people that, like I'd love for, there to be surrounding keto people in my life that I could just, they honor me, I honor them, and the input from all of it. And so she had me at hello, but then when she started weaving another loved one into her whole carnivore journey, along with her own issues that she faced. And Michaela, I mean, in case that wasn't enough for me, to think of what she came from. I mean, she has had such issues, a hip replacement at age 6, and just all of the things that she went to, very articulate. And then along with Gary, I mean, it's like, I just couldn't get enough of it. It's the sort of thing that it's like, when a child watches the same video over and over and over again, or wants the same bedtime story read over and over again, I would choose probably her interview with Gary Kerwin, Biohackers Lab, to listen to again, because I'm sure there are so many nuggets that I might have even missed, like an Easter egg hunt. It's like, oh, I forgot to check that place too. How about you?
Well, I guess the quibble that I would have with you is that I think a better interview to watch from Biohackers Lab on a loop, if you're just trying to get your feet wet on the subject of carnivory, is one that you told me about. It was the Kelly Hogan interview, and he did a great job of interviewing her as well. And she dealt with the pregnancy and going through a pregnancy at a time when no one else was doing carnivory, certainly not as a pregnant woman, and how well she's thrived on that diet, how well her children have thrived since being born while she was on that diet. And so that interview, I thought, if I'm comparing interviews, I thought that was a better interview because Kelly Hogan is funnier than Michaela Peterson, and she's punchier, and she also seems more optimistic. I don't know. There's something. Michaela Peterson is very straight and down to earth, and there's nothing fake about her. And I'm not trying to put her down in any way, but Kelly Hogan has a kind of, joyfulness and humor about her that really appealed to both me and to Marnia. You told me about that video, and when I started playing it, Marnia started listening, and I did the same thing with the Michaela Peterson. And 5 minutes into it, Marnia said, "Turn that off. It's depressing." And it was. I mean, it's depressing. This poor girl who's born with these incredible sensitivities to food and needed to be on an all-meat diet essentially from birth, and no one knew. And she couldn't find her way back to health until she got there. And it's a terrible story. But you have to be in a kind of robust state of mind not to feel like, oh my God, this 7-year-old girl being diagnosed with extreme arthritis. That's what if that had happened to me when I was 7? That would have been ridiculous. So
I know, and it wasn't her parents that were already carnivore that could help her.
Right. Oh yeah. No, she has to help. She has to grow up, find her way to carnivory, and then help her parents there. And that, I think, is the part of the story that must appeal to both of us, right? That she's able to get the whole Peterson family is now on board with, if not doing what she's doing, at least understanding 100% why she's doing what she's doing. And it kind of seems like Kelly Hogan's family is like, cool, whatever, seems to be working for you. It's not the same sort of everybody is on board with doing the same kind of thing. So if what you're after is that fantasy of not fantasy, it happened for Peterson. That idea of your family actually getting on board. But yeah, it's a really powerful and heartwarming story. Absolutely.
The thing that I liked about it also was that she talked about different foods and having reactions from them. And I liked that part because right when I listened to her is my transition from, the 150 to 200 grams of lettuces down to the 60. And the thing is nobody's going to tell you that you're having a sensitivity to something that was your friend, your reliance in the food world, and everything else. And so, Cowboy and I received a comment from somebody, and it was kind of like, how could you disappoint me? I was looking for you to be consistent and steady, and now you're doing this with your lettuces.
Oh,
and
my
I
goodness.
asked Cowboy for an assist on that because I thought he could do better, because my my response was just, I don't know. I didn't want to defend what I was doing, but I didn't want to blast her either. And so you gave me that assistant, and that's, I guess there, you're right about Kelly. She is so vibrant. And I hear you with that. But the part that I liked about Michaela was that she talked about certain foods that were her friend before. And the more she got into her carnivore lifestyle, the more she became sensitive to standbys, old standbys.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, the only point I was going to make is that on an elimination diet, you discover things, and we'll go back to a point that actually TD made on the video that you commented on earlier today. And the point is, until you pare down to just meat and water, you really don't have much of a chance of figuring out how much that spinach was bothering you, how much those beans were bothering you, how much that asparagus, whatever it was that you thought was a mainstay, a cornerstone of your ketogenic success. And you thought, that's always been good for me, and it always makes me feel good when I have that meal. And you're just not figuring out that 14 hours later, something is happening, and you're not thinking that, you just don't think that could have anything to do with what you did.
Well, it's a vegetable.
Right. Oh yeah, it's a green vegetable, right? A green vegetable, that's gotta be healthy. And that's just something that everyone assumes. And I'll just insert here as a buried aside. Georgia E does a great job of doing this making arguments about iron and spinach. If you look at the iron in steak and you look at the iron in spinach, you say, oh my goodness, look at all that iron in the spinach, but you don't absorb any of it. Almost none of it is bioavailable to you, because the spinach is a lot better at hanging on to its own iron and passing through your system than the steak is. The steak is designed, not what the steak is designed to do. It's what your stomach is designed to do. Your stomach is dissolved to design that steak and get every bit of iron out of it. Your stomach is going to try to get stuff out of that spinach, but what it's going to get is more likely to be the toxic components of the spinach, the oxalates, than the nutritive parts of the spinach. And people Popeye, he has the spinach and then the mussels, and that's how green vegetables work. And we just get that, I don't know, implanted in our brains at a young age when we're not critical of it. We think, well, there's no reason they would be lying about this. This must be how it is. And then we've got a whole world of like 7 billion people who just have been brainwashed into not wondering whether it's possible that the spinach could be hurting them. And all I know is when I cut the spinach out of my diet, my kidney stone problem vanished. There it is.
And I told you, you had mentioned oxalates with it. And so I decided that was the first lettuce I gave up before I gave up the big ass salad. And you said, I think that's a good idea for you. And I remember 30 something years ago, I was working in my sports bar, and somebody ordered a spinach salad and gave me the lecture that it had to be raw spinach that was good for you, not cooked. And I don't know to this day what the difference is, but I just remember that, people are going to split hairs about some of the craziest things. And of course, this whole vegetables, some of them aren't our friends, if not all of them, leads me down the road to Dr. Stephen Gundry, is it?
Uh-huh.
right? And
He's the plant paradox guy.
yes, yes. And you know, Giselle and Tom Brady, of course, you know, I Giselle for a day, but you know, coming from Boston, of course, you know, I you know, have an affinity towards them. But it's just also interesting where not to make fun of my legs, but it's kind of like my varicose vein waitress legs, you know. It's like you've got that main vein, and then you've got all these tributaries going off of it. And it's like, well, I never gave vegetables a thought until I did. And now that brings in a whole new world of research that I want to do, plus feeling how the vegetable feels to me. It's just a very interesting world that we live in. And so I'm just fascinated by the whole thing and the doors it opens for more research and more research. And you're right. The idea of Popeye eating his spinach to this day, I'm sure that visual is implanted in my head. Plus, because I'm a female, olive oil's skinny.
Oh, yes, she is. Oh my goodness. Your Evu is also a Popeye character. I never thought about that. That's funny. So Popeye is actually a show about the Mediterranean diet. Now that I don't know. I'm playing.
Yes.
Before we lose sight of the Biohackers Lab thing, I want to put in that my homework assignment to you and get your feedback on it before I go into the comments I want to share was Zsófia Clemens. I think I'm saying that right. She's part of the Paleo Medicina group in Hungary. And these folks advocate the Paleolithic ketogenic diet. And her accent can be a bit of a challenge for some readers. Was it a chat for some viewers? Was it a challenge for you, Sarah?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Okay.
yes. And then I did it on closed caption the second time I watched it. But the closed caption is so grammatically and it's just so incorrect anyway.
Oh,
it was
so
a very
struggle.
Yeah, it was a struggle. And yeah. And every time I had a negative thought about it, I said, Mike is my dear friend. He gave me this assignment. I have to do this for him.
You were very dutiful. I appreciate it.
I was dutiful. I tried and I tried. It was kind of like, you know, eating raw organ meat.
Maybe not the most appetizing thing you've ever done.
I really tried. I really tried. And so I'll save. I've got more thoughts on that. And so you said instead of Michaela that you would do a Kelly Hogan thing.
Right. And so you're going to say that instead of Zsófia Clemens, you would recommend.
Well, I just have to go back to your thoughts because I don't know how old this video is, but once again, Biohackers Lab, he interviewed Amber O'Hearn, which is like a lot of people's first brush with carnivore, especially if you're a woman. It's like, who am I going to listen to that's a little bit older, that blah, 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 blah. And the reason I'm saying I think it's older is for a couple of reasons. Because all the way through it, he offers where he is in his eating habits and world and says things that he's tried, things that he's given up, things that he does different. And so it is more of a conversation, which if you watched a Biohackers video that was done like last week, you would say this man, you know, he really steps back now. But with Amber, it was great because it was a little bit different. And so he offered up his opinions about his carnivore journey along with hers. So it's very interesting. And she mentioned Kelly Hogan. Have you ever heard of Kelly Hogan? And Gary says, no, I don't think I have to. You have to listen to her because as it turns out, Amber, I don't think she was carnivore for the first two babies. No, wait, I don't know. Anyway, it's fuzzy now because we're talking about all these women. And but by the time she got to carnivore with her third baby and breastfeeding, she's not sure if she was much more comfortable in her own skin about being a carnivore. This is Amber, or that it was her third baby. And so she was a little bit better at handling the whole breastfeeding experience. It's just like sometimes with a lot of us that have had babies, it's like, which came first? So when she said, you've got to watch Kelly Hogan, she's amazing. And then she talked about her putting on a whole bunch of weight, which Kelly kind of breezes over it in her interview. She said, you got to trust the process kind of thing without saying how much. But Amber said she put on a whole bunch of weight, which any female would go, ah!
Right.
That's not what I need at this point. More, I'm trying to lose. And so it was very, very interesting. Okay, so back to
Sophia.
The thing that I had to keep in mind was that it's paleo, and the distinctions sometimes get to me because they must be splitting hairs, because there must be a lot of similarities. But then I had to remember that she has people that had already been through so much in their journey of food, certain foods not working, that by the time they end up with her, their medical conditions are quite severe. And so, so I listened to her and I said, I'm not that sick, or I don't have those medical conditions. Okay. So I felt her austere. I think I'm strict and disciplined with her, that, God bless her for doing what she does in this little podunk town outside of Budapest. It's not even Budapest.
Right.
When you think of how many people have to, the efforts they have to go to get to her, and how do they hear about her? And Gary at one point said to her, what about I don't know if he said me, meaning himself, could go to that and just see what you do. And she said it would be unethical. So. Okay.
You make an interesting comparison. So if I'm hearing you right, my critique of the Michaela Peterson video is, I think most people would be better off as their first taste of carnivory listening to Kelly Hogan. And your critique of the Jovia Clemens video is, you think most people would be better off listening to Ambro Hearn. Is that fair? That's
yeah, I just think that if Sophia was your first interview with Biohackers Lab, you might just get turned off by so many of the difficulties that were presented, and through nobody's fault. It's just that, I felt further in, I could get tremendous respect for this woman and enjoy her for the work that she's done and appreciate it. But it was a struggle to keep up with.
Right. Her work is important. And I think she is by profession a clinician. That is, she oversees the way people respond to the nutritional therapies provided by the Paleomedicina group in Hungary. And so she observes. So, I have the kind of respect for her that I have for Jason Fung, or for Ted Naiman, or for anyone who's a hands-on practitioner. Like, I've got ideas about nutrition and I've got patients, and they enact my ideas and I get to see where I screwed up. Dr. Eric Westman falls into this category. I have tremendous respect for all these people who are reporting honestly on the results they achieve with patients. And I guess the thing that really stuck out to me, what kind of arrested me about that video, and the reason I wanted to bring it to your attention, was how, I don't know that aggressive is the right word, but it's the word I'll settle on. She seemed aggressive in her claim making. A lot of people, like if you listen to Sarah Hallberg from the Verta Health studies, she'll tell you what the stats say, and then she'll kind of retreat from that. Like, there may have been some issues of compliance. There may have been, she'll say, this isn't conclusive. We can't extrapolate too much from this. This is the data. And the first thing I want to do is point out the limitations of the data, which is, I think, standard scientific practice, right? The first thing we should do, what did we establish? And what are the potential flaws in what we established? That's the way the conversation usually starts with people like Sarah Hallberg. Thomas Seyfried, who is one of the biggest critics of the cancer industry as it stands now, and who wishes that we would look at cancer as a metabolic rather than a genetic disease. Even he, who gets really fiery when talking about chemotherapy and radiation, et cetera, even he will will settle down and scale back and talk about, well, it's not just glucose, it's also glutamine. And I mean, he tries not to overstate certain parts of his argument. There are parts of his argument that he definitely does not shy away from overstating. But what struck me about Zsofia was she seemed ready to overstate anything, or maybe overstate's too strong a word, but to give no quarter. And the claims, and right now I'm just talking vaguely and abstractly, so I'll give examples. The first claim that really just spun my head around was that the classical ketogenic diet, which is different from the Paleolithic ketogenic diet, abbreviated PKD, the classical keto versus PKD, is that Paleolithic keto isn't going to have any of the foods that we think of as pre-industrial but agricultural. That is, before we had industrial processes to make seed oils, we did make press oils from olives and from coconuts. They were fatty enough things that we could just, by cold pressing, we could get the oils out. We didn't need to use hexane and a bunch of laboratory equipment. And so we wouldn't have been eating that stuff, coconut oil and olive oil, 50,000 years ago. There's just no way we would have had access to those kinds of things. But we wouldn't have had access to seed oils until about 150 years ago. So in regular keto, you're eating oils that were available as recently as 200 years ago. Coconut oil, olive oil, that kind of stuff. But you're not eating the soybean oil type stuff that only recently emerged on the scene as an industrial product. Well, for the Paleolithic ketogenic diet, 200 years ago is not far enough to go back. You go back 50,000 years. What would we have eaten then? And it's essentially meat and maybe a few plants that we can find from them. But really, she's focused on meat. And the claim that she makes is that the classical ketogenic diet only eliminates seizures from 10% of epileptic children, whereas her Paleolithic ketogenic diet eliminates seizures from all but one of the patients she's ever had. And so I don't know what all but one means in terms of a percentage. I'm not sure what that claim amounts to, but it's very impressive. I mean, it sounds like this classical ketogenic diet, which is full of oils and plant fats. That the way I started keto was with coconut oil, for sure. Not
Me too.
not lard
Me
and
too.
tallow. And she concedes that a classical ketogenic diet will reduce seizures in all epileptic children. No matter how ineffective it is, it's at least effective enough that you have fewer seizures on it than you did when you were on a standard diet. That happens whether you're on the classical or the paleo ketogenic diet. But on the paleo, it's not a matter of reducing seizures, it's a matter of eliminating them. And that is a huge difference. And I look forward to picking Robin Beer's brain on this, because she deals with seizures in addition to the cancer problems. And I know that she's gone carnivore, and I'd like to get her take on what she makes of this claim from Clemens. But it seems like an extreme claim to go from reducing to eliminating. I'd want you to show me some data beyond your experience as not just vouching, this is my observed experience. I'd like to see some data too, from a scientist. And then the second thing that she said that was just mind-blowingly provocative to me was that type 1 diabetes is caused by dairy, that it's dairy, which some of our bodies just cannot handle some of the compounds in dairy. And that if you took dairy away from these kids that are developing type 1 diabetes, they might not ever need insulin in their lives. They might hang on with whatever beta cells they have left in their pancreas and get by as long as you don't further aggravate the situation with dairy. That is a highly specific claim. She made it with, it seemed like, the utmost confidence, and maybe I misinterpreted. Her accent is a challenge for most people. I thought I had the hang of it, and I thought I heard her right. So if any of your viewers have watched that interview and said, no, that's not what she said, please correct me. But that's a pretty big claim, that I can pinpoint the cause of diabetes as being not just fat or sugar, not some macronutrient, but a specific type of food. I don't know what to do with that. If that's true, I mean, and she said it with the utmost certainty, if she knows it as well as she does, why doesn't the whole world know this? I mean, why isn't this getting more press? And I guess we can think of a lot of reasons why that would be, but it was a troubling moment for me.
So this is what I have to say about all of the cast of characters that we've talked about here today. That if there's some confusion, and some people were saying, I can't understand her, and they were talking about the closed caption, and then one person was kind enough, like you did with me, about how to put on a video here, to explain how to get to closed caption. So it did add to my absorbing some of it. That's one. And then two, what I do with people that I get a lot from is listen to them with other people interviewing them. So leaving biohackers' most excellent interviews and watching what happens when that person, like Michaela, goes with somebody else, like the ketogenic girl, like maybe there are a couple of others too. And then maybe they'll pull something out. When somebody like Joe Rogan, who was all about exercising it, has Michaela, who does no exercise because of a broken ankle that never healed right, if I'm remembering it right, he's you can exercise your way into fitness, and he's sitting there like this with everything bulging, talking to a 26-year-old new mother. And so you can get things out of an interview where they're opposite sexes as well. And somebody like Joe Rogan isn't willing to hear what Gary Kerwin could hear, even though he's a male. So that's what I did. And so I went with Zofia. I went to somebody else interviewing her, hoping that I could get a better understanding, but it didn't get any better, bless her heart. I give her lots of credit, but I guess with her PKD, which I completely forgot about, and she might have, they might be institutionalized while they're working with her. They could be in a clinic kind of environment where she is wicked overseeing their every bite, and their parents are like totally on board with exactly what they're being fed. I don't know, but she was fiercely protecting what it is that she does.
Yes, that's what I guess that was the thing that kind of put me off about a message that I'm quite receptive to. I think she's probably right about just about everything. And I think probably we did if you think about our evolution as a species and how many millions of years went into life before anything like us came along, I just appreciate the long view of what would we have been doing for most of our existence, not just the last. And instead of in the classical ketogenic diet focusing on what we've done for the last 10,000 years, let's focus on what we would have done for the million years prior to that. And your body, there's going to be stuff. There's going to be chemistry hardwired into your body that was designed to survive all those eons of experience on this planet, those mechanisms are going to be confused by the weird synthetic artificial things we're doing now in ways that they just cannot be confused by animal flesh, which has been with us for as long as we've been around. So I am very sympathetic to her argument. I hope I didn't sound too critical. I just found I was surprised by how she didn't back off any of her claims. If anything, she just wanted to go in and be combative, and in a certain way, I find that laudable. And I hope if she's right about everything, which I suspect she is, it's only good that she's that way. But it was a remarkable difference in terms of her tenor from the average clinician that you hear from.
Yes, and I guess the best credit that I could give her is that she has the courage of her convictions.
Yes, but also
I'm not going to change her mind. And in following my rabbit hole trail of Michaela being interviewed by different people, same Michaela, just different people, is that somebody did bring up environmentally, the difference between way back when, even, me being born in 1950. You know, what was offered from 1950 to 1960, you couldn't find as pure, perhaps, products today, you know, from all of it. So it's very, very interesting. So we are kind of reaching an hour.
Yes.
And have you exhausted everything that you wanted to say about her and anything else that we've said? Are there any, and furthermore,
and furthermore, no, I think I did want to cover those 2 points about Zsofia, so thank you for letting me go on about those. But I just want to return to something from Michaela and just use this conversation to prove a point that has become irksome to me. On Twitter, there are people who are very divisive people. We can call them trolls, or we can just call them divisive people. I don't care. But they clearly have an agenda against people stepping outside the standard American diet. Whether they're paid to have that agenda or they're just ideologically committed to the standard American diet, I don't know. But there are a lot of these people who really want to sort of find any reason to keep people from experimenting with their diet. Just keep eating the food that's making you fat and sick. That's where they stay. They just want to keep you there. And one of the big weird methods of pushback that I am seeing against carnivory just in the past couple of weeks is to taint it with a gender and political brush. That is to say that carnivory is for men who are, deeply insecure and want to be macho. And they're right-wingers like Jordan Peterson. And I'm not a politics guy. So I'm just going to take the assertion that Jordan Peterson is more sympathetic to people on the right than the left. That seems to be a point that's conceded by people. Okay, fine. I'm not all that interested. But people look at Jordan Peterson is on the right. His daughter is advocating this diet. So it goes with conservative men who are very machismo oriented. And certainly Jordan Peterson makes arguments that minimize gender differences. And maybe you can make that argument if you want, but I think people are taking that out of context. That's just my opinion, and it's not important. And I'm not looking to get into political debates with anyone. What I am looking to establish is that most of the people who follow me on Twitter are not right-wing nut jobs. Most of the people who follow me on Twitter lean Democrat, if anything. I don't know what Democrat has to do with left. And again, I'm just not trying to bog down in the politics, but they are not Trump-thumping, hard-line conservatives who think that men should be eating steak and women should be eating a chicken salad. That's just not true. Just on the face of it, this political divide that I'm being told exists in carnivory doesn't exist. Most of the people that I see in carnivory are not on one side or the other of the political spectrum. And more importantly, we mentioned Kelly Hogan, and we talked about Michaela Peterson, and we talked about Amber O'Hearn, and we mentioned Georgia Ede, and we didn't mention Esme LaFleur, but I'll throw her in right now. And I just get really impatient with the idea that there's something masculine about carnivory. All of my most important influences have been women. And you brought out the pregnancy question in conjunction with carnivory, and what a problem that was for Kelly Hogan to mull over, for Michaela Peterson to mull over, for Amber O'Hearn to mull over. It's not that we have just one example. We have multiple examples of this. And so as far as I can tell, your political leaning has nothing to do with the efficacy of carnivory, and your gender has nothing to do with the efficacy of carnivory. And I'm kind of banging this drum because I see every day on Twitter, I get another person trying to tell me that carnivory is for macho man Trump worshipers, and that just isn't true. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Okay, that's clear. Now, in an interesting twist is that, my niche is older women with the most stubborn metabolisms in the world, and for good reason, because they've probably been like me, doing every single diet plan, that the Jenny Craig and the Nutrisystem and the Weight Watchers and the Tops and everything else. And you can only imagine what their menu suggestions look, their food items look like. And so it's so funny to see an older woman who's like 69, 71, ages that like we're in the pasture as far as the rest of the world is looking at us. But the community that watches me a lot are the older women who have proven that having a keto, high fat, moderate protein, low carb diet, they've lost pounds and pounds and pounds. And it's like, whoever knew, when you see these women and that they're grandmotherly, they've been retired from their office job or something or forever, and they've lost super amounts of weight. And so it's like, it's like you picture, because most of us still have that fear of like, the oil, the butter, the whatever. And
the fat.
And so it's the same sort of thing, in your world of carnivory is for men only. And that like, losing weight after 50, it's like, oh, get over yourself. You're just going to be a fat old lady. And we're proving it doesn't have to be that way. So I think it's kind of neat. And I see both of, what you were saying and what I'm saying about the older women with keto is like they're little waves right now. They're just little waves, but they're getting a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. Me with being 68 with my ladies that, fall into the same category. And these women that we mentioned, all of them making a contribution to like carnivory ain't just for boys, And so it's a little ripple now, but it is going to become bigger and bigger and bigger as we all heal ourselves and lose the weight. Because I think, my age group wants one more time at bat, go to that class reunion and like be 50 pounds lighter where nobody recognizes you. And that we still have silly little goals because we're female and we've been brought up to be, trim and whatever measure it takes to get there. It didn't matter back then. I remember candy, AYDS, there's like these little craft chocolate or caramel things that we would eat to suppress our appetite. We didn't get there. We just wanted to get there. And so now you see these wonderful females that are doing this and healing. It's not about losing the weight. Who cares how? Just lose it, and these women are teaching us it's okay to, have the all meat diet or to do the keto food plan and not fear the fat. So it's very, very interesting. And both of those things are going to turn into huge waves. And each new person that comes on board in your world and my world has a lot to teach us.
Yes. We need to be curious about where people are coming from, not just eager to say where we are. That's the value we can get out of a conversation like this. Like this is the homework assignments where I just watched this video. I wonder what Sarah thinks about it, because there's really no sense of community quite like picking the brain of someone who mostly thinks the way you do, right? That we've got some similarities, but we're not completely of one mind. And that means if I get you to watch this presentation and give me your feedback on it, there's going to be something about your response to it that surprises me. And we do need to value that. We do need to value that we're not all just in lockstep, must eat whatever, must eat only this one thing, everyone all the time, this many times per day. We've got it all worked out. And to the extent that you deviate from this, you are a traitor to your species. That we need to be open to the fact that we're all proceeding at different rates and we're all doing our best. You're still quite satisfied in your 60. You are 69 now. Is that right?
68.
68. You are in your 68-year-old body. You're very satisfied by fat. In my 49-year-old body, I am very satisfied by protein. And so when people are wondering what they need to do, they just need to be able to hear from people and get the range of opinions and figure out and try. And the point is, no one can tell you what's going to work for you. You have to test it. And this is what Sarah does every day is she puts out a video in which she does the do. She keeps doing her thing to the extent that it works for her, and tweaking it to the extent that is you, see room for improvement. And I think that's just a model of success. I think these waves that you talk about are only going to get bigger, and your daily coffee updates are playing a big role in that. People are just seeing it's just as simple as having the courage to try something, to step outside my comfort zone and give this a try and see how it makes me feel. So that's why I think your 5 days a week updates are so valuable to the community, Sarah. And I really appreciate being able to call you a friend.
It's been fun, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
Okay, so the next one is on you, and we'll be assigning each other a video to watch and process. And it will be if Biohackers comes out with a good one, it's going to be a race to see who assigns.
That's probably right. That's
right?
probably
Right. All right. So we're going to sign off now. Don't you leave quite yet.
Okay.
We're going to sign off from the broadcast. And thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. And bye-bye, Sarah's viewers.
Bye-bye.